And welcome back to How to Connect with Humans. This is series 5 and it's episode 2. Hello, Wayne, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. We're usually next to each other.
I
But
know,
today,
this is really strange.
we don't have COVID, but we have to self-isolate for a few days. So we're not in the same place today. We're always together, my love. So today, look, but I managed to do this. Look how pretty. So you can read what it says behind. Yeah, we have people clapping. Yeah, so it is Painless. And we have somebody really special that we learned to admire very much. We have Chana Studley, and she's agreed to come to the series today. We are so looking forward to having Chana. We have heard her talk, and her story is absolutely amazing. I've got goosebumps. She's got a new book called Painless, and she lived 25 years with chronic pain. And she's going to tell us a little bit of her story about how she managed to actually to live a life painless. So Chana, it's so lovely to have you here all the way from Israel in Jerusalem. How are you?
Hi, Carolina. It's really nice to be here. Thank you, and thank you for putting the special background up. It's very special. I feel very special right now. And yeah, I'm in Israel, and it's about 35 degrees, which is about over 80 degrees, and it's 9 o'clock at night. So I might have to get my fan out, and it's really hot here right now. Yeah.
So the book came out last year. It was 2020, was it?
Yeah, at the end of the year, December time it came out, just in time for the holidays. Yeah, for the gift giving.
And so you've been working with people. That what I think would be lovely for people to hear is how your journey started, if you wouldn't mind. So did you come to the principles first, or did the pain come to your life first? What was it, the egg or the chicken?
Right. No, the pain definitely came first. I had a lot of injuries in my early 20s. I was mugged 3 times, in 2 times in Manchester and once in London. I grew up in England, and I received a lot of injuries from that, and from like the PTSD and the trauma of it. And thank God I got well, and I started having a career in Hollywood. I worked in movies for about 20 years. But during that time, I would have such back pain, like the muscles in the middle of my back would start to squeeze up, and then my pelvis would shift out of place, and then I'd get shooting pains down my leg. And several times I was paralyzed. I mean, thank God it was temporary, but I didn't know that at the time. It was very frightening, and having to be taken to the hospital, and the doctors, asking me, on a scale of like 0 to 10, what's your pain? And I'm like, it's like 15. Like so. And so I spent my life just dealing with this pain, and I was told I just have to cope with it. So I went to the chiropractor every month for 25 years. I tried acupuncture, but I don't like the idea of needles. Thank God nobody suggested surgery. I had 3 herniated discs in my back. I had 2 broken vertebrae in my neck, and my skull had been fractured. So, and sometimes they told me, well, it's because you've got one leg longer than the other. That's what makes your pelvis slanted, so your lower back is unstable, and that's why you're getting the pain. And then sometimes I'd wake up and my arm would be numb. And they'd say, well, that's because the nerve for your arm is coming out of your neck where your neck was broken. I'm like, okay, because I'm not a doctor. So I just kept, listening to this stuff and dealing with it. And so the chiropractor was like a regular appointment. And then if I had one of these flare-ups, I would go more often and go, and I had the whole routine. As soon as my back started to squeeze, I would be grabbing the ice and the hot water bottle, lying on the floor, like looking for the number of the chiropractor. Like, I even had a walking stick. I mean, I literally was, when I had a flare-up, I'd be bent forward and bent sideways. I couldn't even stand up straight, and I'd need a walking stick just to get out of the house. So I just thought this was my life. And I had quite a few other kind of physical problems too, like IBS, stomach problems. I had terrible skin things every now and again, and allergies. I grew up like chronic hay fever, and my school bag was like a pharmacy. And I tried homeopathy. I tried the neti pot, salt water, and I was always getting sinus infections. And I never thought of myself as a sick person. I just was like just stuff I had to deal with, And I'd actually trained as a counsellor when I was in college at Manchester University back in the 80s. And so working in the entertainment business, there's always a lot of downtime in between projects, and I could have like 3 or 4 months off between movies or theatre projects. So I would always do the coaching and the counselling in between projects. And I was always interested in whatever the latest, self-help thing was, I was into A Course in Miracles and the Enneagram and, expressive writing and doing yoga and Pilates and, whatever, you name it. And because I ended up in California because of working in film. So in Southern California, there's always something to get into and, there's a silent retreat in Santa Barbara, I have to go, that kind of stuff. And then I came across the 3 principles about 6 years ago, I'd say 6 or 7 years ago now. And a friend of mine who I'd been teaching with, we were having lunch, and she said to me, I came across this really amazing thing. I think you're going to love it. I went to his workshop. I think you're really going to like it. And I'm like, so what is it? And she's like, well, we'd been talking for like 2 hours, and then suddenly she couldn't speak. She couldn't explain what it was. I said, well, I had no idea what she was talking about. I said, well, is it a diet? And she's like, no. And then I said, well, is it an exercise? And she's like, no. I said, well, what is it? A philosophy? She's like, well, yeah, kind of, no, not really, but yeah. And so she wrote on a napkin, she wrote Sydney Banks, Mind, Thought, and Consciousness, and just shoved it across the table at me. She said, go look this up. I think you're going to like it. I'm like, okay. So I came home and I sat right here looking at my computer, and I put Sydney Banks into YouTube or something. And I sat here and I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And it was kind of like, it felt like finding a vocabulary for what I'd always suspected. Like I knew my thinking was the problem. And I'd had a lot of negative thinking. So positive thinking must be better, right? So all the self-help work I'd been doing was trying to clean up my thought hygiene, so I would never have negative thoughts and keep the positive thoughts coming, So when I heard Sid Banks talking, I was like, oh my gosh, all that effort I've been putting in, I see now why I was always exhausted, why I was always frightened of negative thinking, and I was kind of protecting myself from something that didn't even really exist, and it was just like boom, 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 all these light bulbs went off, and I just fell in love with it straight away. So I actually decided to do the One Thought course in London with Aaron Turner, and because of the expense of the course, and because I live in Israel, I had to fly backwards and forwards several times, so I needed to start saving some money, and I thought, where can I save some money? So I thought, I'll cut out the chiropractor, because I was feeling pretty okay. And I thought, if if I get any pain, then I can always call her up and make an appointment. So I started flying backwards and forwards from London. I'm staying with friends. It's like there was a lot going on during that 6 months. And then at the end of the 6 months, I realized I hadn't had any pain. And I remember sitting here and I was like checking in with my back and thought, I actually feel strong. Because I thought of myself as a weak person. My back was weak. Like, I remember one time going to the chiropractor in absolute agony, and she said, oh, what happened this time? I'm like, well, I turned to put my seatbelt on. She said, no, well, that'll do it. And like, now I think about that, that just makes no sense. Like, as if a human being can't turn like that to put on a seatbelt. So I had this story in my head that my back was weak, and I had to look after it. And so here I was feeling strong, and I was like, that's weird. So I mentioned it to a friend, and she started introduced me to the whole pain management world. And there's a lot of amazing pioneering doctors who've done a lot of work to kind of bring the mind-body connection into the foreground, and sort of steering people away from surgeries and, and addictive medications. And, often most of those, back surgeries are not needed or don't even work. And so there's a lot of amazing stuff that I started reading. And one of the first things I read, I remember reading the femur bone, that's your thigh bone, the biggest bone in your body. If you were to fracture that, it would heal within 4 to 6 weeks. So I suddenly thought, hold on a minute, if a bone that big can heal in 4 to 6 weeks, then my injuries from 25 years ago must have healed already. So why am I still feeling this pain? And then I started reading other research, and I found this guy in Australia called Lorimer Moseley. He's a really, really funny guy, and he does amazing pain research. And he had a statement. He said, "We only experience pain when it comes into consciousness." I thought, ooh, that's interesting, right? So that kind of got my attention, and so I started, reading more, and I thought, I wonder if I could recreate this in other people. So a couple of years ago now, I did some research, and I asked for some volunteers. I had 5 people, I did 5 case studies, and I basically just introduced them to the principles, and they started getting better. Some more than others. And I just continued that work. And I've been working with people all over the world now, just introducing them to these ideas and like watching people, start to get well. Some people get well really quickly, like I did, just like, I think what happens is when your thinking slows down, the nervous system gets a chance to slow down, and then the pain message just, starts to fade away, sometimes quicker for some people and sometimes more slowly. But even the people it's happening more slowly, it's amazing to see the shift in consciousness, that even just being in pain is like a better experience when you understand these principles. And so then I wrote the book about, about a fictitious person, Deborah. She kind of goes on a similar journey that I had, and it was so much fun turning it into a novel, into a story, and putting all the information or the science in there, because I think, like, maybe I'm a bit weird that I love reading research. I love to read this stuff, but I know not everybody does. So by putting it in story form, it kind of makes it a bit more palatable for people, and to watch the characters do the searching and the suffering and the discovering and the and the happy ending. So so it's even just writing the book was writing. I never imagined that I'd be publishing books. That's also another incredible thing that's happened as a result of the principles. But it's been an amazing journey, and I feel like it's just even just starting. So it's we're just like catching up on the beginning right now. So yeah, that brings you up to today.
Brilliant. And I mean, your book is called Painless, and front of the book already it says certified you live for 25 years with chronic pain, and you did nothing. That's in a way what it says. So for people that may not be familiar about the principles and stuff, so was it a miracle? Was it like it just happened to you because you're special, Hannah? Or is because you live in a sacred place? I don't know. It's so how does it work, or how would you say your experiences around this?
That's actually a really hard question to answer, because I didn't know that my pain could go away. So I'd never really worked on getting rid of it. I'd always worked on coping with it, how to, by having the regular chiropractic appointments and like, I would doing yoga and stuff like that, making your core strength strong, like all that kind of stuff, so I was just always in the coping, like world with my pain. And so when it went away, I mean, I was just shocked as anybody, because it kind of, I mean, I've had this experience with understanding the principles, I've had quite a lot of things go away too that I haven't worked on. Like, I used to be the most incredibly judgmental person. I'm still a little bit, but it's like the amazing thing about the principles is, like, because we don't work on things, like, you look around and like, where did that go? And it just slips away, different like parts of things that used to be such a problem. So for understanding how the mind works, and that's really what I point people to when I'm working with them, is showing people how the mind works, how experience actually happens, that we're always feeling our thinking. Now, the teachers I heard in the beginning would say things like that, we're always feeling our thinking. And I think often when they say that, they were meaning your mood, like your mood is a reflection of your thinking. For example, if you're having low, miserable, kind of grouchy thoughts, then you can't really be in a good mood, right? And if you're having happy, abundant, joyful thoughts, you can't really be in a bad mood. So it's a reliable system. That's how we are feeling our thinking, in the mood that it creates. Like, the mood is actually a friend, because it's like tapping me on the shoulder, telling me, you know, what the quality of my thinking is. But I think for some of us, we're feeling our thinking in our bodies, because that's what, I mean, it's also quite natural too, because if you think about it, like when people speak in front of like a group of people, like I know a president speaking in front of the country, they will give that person a glass of water, right? When someone does public speaking, they always give you a glass or a bottle of water. Why? Because it's natural to get dry mouth when you're nervous. It's just a natural reaction. It's not anything weird about any, like, they don't give you an apple or a cheese sandwich. They give you a glass of water, right? Because dry mouth is something that automatically and naturally happens with people when they get a little bit nervous. So that's a physiological reaction to thoughts. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to speak in front of all these people. You know, your mouth dries up and you need water. So the body is constantly having physical reactions to our thinking. And then chronic pain, I think, from what I've seen over the last few years of reading and talking to people, it's like when we have a big reaction to something and we keep reacting, it kind of starts building up a pattern in the mind. And so we're feeling the thinking in our bodies. And for some people, it's in their gut and their stomach. For some people, it's in their skin. For some people, it's migraines. And I asked a doctor one time, why do some people get stomach problems and some people get migraines? And he said, we don't know. We don't know, you know. So, but what I found the most helpful was just seeing that as I began to understand how the mind works and my thinking started to slow down, for me, I think that's what actually happened, is as my thinking slowed down and I wasn't seeing the world as a scary, dangerous place that needed to be judged, supervised, monitored, you know, criticized, my brain started getting more safety messages than danger messages. And so my body wasn't reacting so much anymore, and the pain wasn't needed. You know, wasn't necessary anymore. So because the injuries had healed and things were getting better. So yeah, it's fascinating, I think.
I think that's one of the brilliant things that you've done with the book, and you like research. And we heard you a few times saying, like, well, I'm not a doctor, you know, I'm not, but right? So which in a way is like, this is not just a nice idea that I had, or, you know, or that also I did my research. Also, I had people I work with that had sort of the same experience. And but you know, somebody can say, well, look, I broke my leg or whatever. Hannah, why are you saying that I'm thinking my pain, that if I stop thinking my pain, then I won't have pain? Would that be something that you hear a lot?
I mean, I don't know that that's I mean, in one way it's very simple, but in actual experience, because when someone's sitting across from me and they're in a lot of pain, you know, I would never say to them, oh, it's just your thinking. Yeah, I mean, that's not a helpful comment to anybody who's learning about the principles, but I think when my pain would come, I would have a reaction to it, and that reaction is made of thought. And so if the reaction is like, oh, not again, oh my gosh, I've done so much, like, why is it happening now? All that, all those kind of reactions is actually producing, it's sending a message to my brain that I'm in danger. And if my brain gets the message that I'm in danger, then it's going to send out adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine, all the stress chemicals into the body, which then kind of make you a bit shaky and wobbly. And then you think, like, well, there's really something wrong now, because look, my hands are shaking. And then we get even more scared, and it's kind of like a cycle. And we can get ourselves into a real panic about things, which is only going to make the pain worse. Like, I remember I've had Dr. Bill Pettit as a teacher and mentor for a couple of years now, which is a big honor. And I remember him saying that if someone is in a low mood, like a low state, they're going to feel pain at a lot more intense level than someone who's in a better mood. So often when I'm working with people, especially more recently, my focus really is to help them get into a better mood, a better feeling. Because, like I say, I'm not a doctor, so I mean, I know a little bit more about technical medical stuff than I did before. Like, I can see glucocorticoids and HPA axis and stuff like that. Like, sound like I know what I'm talking about, but really, I remember when I started getting really caught up in all the science stuff. Excuse me, and then I suddenly remembered, hold on a minute, my pain went away when I didn't know any of these things. So as much as it's kind of nice to know the technical words, and I can keep my own in a conversation with a medical person now, but pointing someone to a good feeling, I think, is far more valuable, because when they're in a good feeling, they're more open to these ideas. They're more open to seeing that the pain could go away, and like it's not always such a, because when you've been in pain for a long time, it's exhausting. It really is exhausting, and so people get really worn down. And so, in fact, at the end of those 5 case studies that I did, it was interesting because each of them said to me individually, as a report afterwards, they said, I really knew that you knew I was okay. Because when you've been going to doctors for a long time, like doctors often will say, oh, like there's a knee pain in cubicle 4, and there's a shoulder pain over here, and you start getting referred to by your diagnosis. And so I was just talking to them like a person, like I knew that sitting across from me was a well person. It's just they'd gotten caught up in a lot of thinking, which is either creating the pain or making an existing pain worse. And so talking to that well part of them, but that's like talking about the wet part of the ocean. It's like they are well, right? It's just gotten covered up with a lot of stinky thinking. And as those kind of layers of like old ideas and misunderstandings and belief systems start falling away, people start going, wow, I feel better. This is weird, but we didn't do anything. We didn't work on my pain. I'm like, yeah, well, that's, that's what can happen,
Yeah. Wayne, is there anything that you would like to ask or share? Or
I think for me, what's coming up when you're speaking, Hannah, is the fact that I've had cerebral palsy all my life, and I've had constant pain in my back and in my legs, and due to various operations I've had, I've constantly been in pain. And for me, since having this understanding, I don't know whether it's the pain's gone or whether it's just that I'm not noticing it more. But for me, I can move around more. and I can do a lot more than what I could do before the understanding. So for me, I think it's the relationship I've got with the pain that I'm having. And I just love when you said that, you know, 1 minute you were in pain and the next you weren't, because for me that's how it came across for me.
Wow. Wow, you're inspiring. You've made my day. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was from 1 minute to the next because I wasn't looking for it. I just know that I had pain, and then I noticed I didn't, you know, so I don't know that it wasn't like I was in pain and it went away. It just was like it'd gone away and it never came back, you know. So but as you were talking, it reminded me of a story I put into the book of actually a real person, a student I used to have. I was a school teacher for about 5 years, and I taught in an elementary school in California, which is like a junior school, and it was kind of an inclusion school. We had kids with all different kinds of abilities, physical and educational. And in my first 8th grade class, there was a girl in a wheelchair, and I don't know what her diagnosis was, but she'd been in a wheelchair her whole life. And one of my friends was a physical therapist for the school district. And I told my friend that, oh, this girl Miriam is in my class, and my friend burst into tears immediately. She said, oh my gosh, I was her PT when she was like in 1st grade, and we were told that she wasn't going to make it probably past 2nd or 3rd grade. Miriam's mind is quite active, but her whole body is completely seized up. She can just about use her fingers. She has a breathing tube. She has 24-hour nursing care. She cannot do anything for herself. And here she was in 8th grade, which is about, 15, 16 years old. And so I was like, yeah, she's doing amazing. She's doing great. So fast forward, when my first book came out, Miriam got in touch with me through Facebook. So she was then about, I don't know, in her 20s, you know, and she wrote to me and she said, and I had asked her permission to repeat the story and to put in the book, but she said, people always say to me, they always presume that my problem is physical. And she said, it's not, it's my thinking like everybody else. And I was like, wow, Miriam, you're a philosopher. And she's probably like 26, 27 now. And like, she's no saint by all means. She complains about like her nurses sometimes, and, you know, and she's like, gets excited. She just got a new wheelchair. But, you know, she's had to watch her friends grow up and, you know, go to college and get married and have kids. And she's still at home with her family. But she raises money for other people who are with, you know, disabilities, and she goes to Disneyland, and she's been on an airplane here to Israel one time. So she's made a life for herself, and I'm so in awe of her, you know, that she's kind of one of my heroes, because she, even without, you know, any of this understanding, she saw that her thinking is what she's actually experiencing. Her disability is, you know, say, oh, your disability doesn't define you. You could say that kind of like a, you know, like a very PC kind of thing to say, but she was saying it like truth, you know, like it was the truth that because I talk to people sometimes, you know, I have quite a lot of clients who have health anxiety where there might not actually be anything wrong, but there might be, you know, it doesn't matter what I say there. Yeah, but what if, you know, what if the doctor missed something? What if, you know, and it's funny, my finger, twice now, my finger right here has gone purple. And I know a lot of my clients would have freaked out and been in the emergency room for that. And I'm like, oh, finger went purple. And I just, you know, like I'm just not that interested anymore. You know, I used to be such a drama queen, you know, like anything, you know, would be an excuse to like for a bit of attention and sympathy. And not that I had enough stories to really make them up, but it was, you know, but now it's like I love what you were saying, that you know, even when we have pain, or it could be difficulties, could be a relationship thing, could be financial, it could, you know, whatever, problems with children, that that my experience of it is completely different now. I have free will. I could still get upset about stuff if I wanted to, but once you start seeing that it's made of thought, and people, I think people always have a yeah, but, You know, I know I did. Like when I first came around this understanding, like I get it's all thinking, but, right? You know, and for it's, you know, no matter who I speak to, their yeah, but is the real one, right? If it's like financial, it's like, yeah, I get it's all thinking, but I've lost my job. How am I going to feed my kids? You can't say that's thinking, right? And then for other people say, it's like, well, I'm single, you know, like you can't say that's thinking. There's no one there, you know, I'm on my own, I'm alone, right? And then a lot of people I work with go, I get it's thinking, but pain is real. Like I'm in pain, you know, I'm suffering, I'm exhausted, I'm, you know, nauseous, and like, so it's, you kind of have to like work around the houses to like get into the idea that pain is made of thought too. It has no substance until I think it does, and that's how it can come and go. And that's why that statement that we only experience pain when it comes into consciousness is that if I'm not thinking about it, maybe it's not there. And it's always happening in the brain. So some of the things I've learned is all injuries heal under normal circumstances. All injuries heal. All pain is real. There's no such thing as real pain and imagined pain, because if you're feeling pain, it's real, right? And all pain happens in the brain. And there's the simple idea of phantom limb pain kind of proves that, right? Because if someone's having pain in a hand, or like an itch or anything in a hand or a foot that doesn't exist, it can't be happening out there. It's happening in here, like everything. And so, and what my brain is doing is only as good as the thoughts it creates. And so I often use the example of being hungry, because people go like, maybe, but you like, my pain's real, you know, like, okay, well, let's say it's lunchtime and you're about to eat lunch, you know, I've got a sandwich, you're gonna have pizza, soup, what am I gonna have? And then let's say you've got a kid there and the kid falls and breaks his arm. And you've got to rush to the hospital, you've got to have x-rays, and you've got to wait for the doctor, and then you're going to have the cast put on. It could be 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, we didn't have any lunch. Well, your stomach's still empty, but your brain has switched off the hunger message because it wouldn't be helpful. Because when you're in emergency, the brain starts making kind of assessments of what's most important. And if you've got to get to the hospital and take care of your kid, then saying, oh, hold on a minute, Johnny, I've got to have my sandwich. It's like, you might grab some food, but, you know, it's like, but the body starts to shut down certain messages that are not helpful. And you'll see this in things like injuries. For example, like if you were running in the park, you know, like walking, like playing with your dog or your kids, and you twist your ankle and you break a bone, then you're going to feel pain immediately, because it's important to take your weight off that injury, because to keep walking on a broken ankle, it could cause a lot of damage. But if you're running from a lion, you know, or you're in battle and you break something, then you might actually not feel the pain because you need to get to safety. So the brain is always deciding whether to switch pain on or off. And it's fascinating. Like I heard a story recently about a soldier who was in Vietnam, and he was seriously wounded in the leg, and he was helicoptered out to the military hospital and you know, taken care of, and his wound was healed. And fast forward 20 years, he's now you know, married, got kids, and he took his kids to an air show, you know, where they have the displays of the, you know, like the Red Arrows in England, and a helicopter landed behind them. And instantly the pain came back and he fell to the floor in agony, because his brain had made the connection between the sound of the helicopter and danger, and actually produced the pain, even though the injury's healed. So as much as imagined pain, created pain is really painful, it's actually a phenomenon. It's ultimate special effects is what it is. You know, so as I neatly segue that into my Hollywood career story, because I did special effects in movies for a long time, and my whole job in Hollywood was to to convince you that things were real that weren't, right? So that's our minds and our brains do that to us all the time. You know, create a special effect that something's real that isn't. You know, it's made of thought. So yeah.
I remember I was in the car earlier driving to the COVID testing centre, and all I had in my head at the time was how awful the test was going to be and how awful people had said it was. And I arrived, parked the car, they came out to me and said, right, okay, we're just going to do the back of your throat first, and then we're going to do up your nose. I was like, okay, that's fine. Literally within 2 seconds, it was done. And for me, I was just like, is that it? She was like, yeah, that's it. Done. You can go now. You've got to self-isolate for 4 days until you come back in for surgery. But yeah, it's done. I was like, wow. And I think for me, it was kind of like, okay, I'd heard that so many people had kind of found it really terrifying and things like that. And I'm just like, nah, it wasn't terrifying at all. For me, when I was younger, I had surgery in my legs twice that I can actually remember, or two that were quite huge. And I remember I had quite a lot of fear in the plasters being taken off 6 weeks after. And for me, I kind of was like, oh no, I can't have the plaster taken off. Oh, you can't drill it. No, don't drill it, because you're going to drill into my foot and you're just going to make it completely painful and completely, you know, undo what the surgeon had done. And they were like, it's okay, it's fine. And I remember at one point they literally took the drill and drilled into their hand to kind of show me, look, it won't go through your skin. It will go through the plaster, but it won't go through your skin. And for me, it was interesting to kind of just see how my mind kind of made that up in a sense of, okay, this is going to be terrifying. And it wasn't.
Wow. So I'm so glad you said that, because I've always wondered, how do they get a cast off without drilling through your leg? I've always wondered that. So thank you. So if I broke my arm, now I don't have to worry about it, because that has gone through my arm. How do they do that? The other thing amazing about casts is there is no healing property in a cast. It's just plaster. The healing is happening in the body. The body's intelligence and wisdom is healing that surgery, that wound, that fracture. And but we look at the cast as if the cast is doing the magic, you know, but the surgeon had done his work, and then the body has this incredible intelligence to heal itself. You know, and all injuries heal, surgeries heal. It's amazing. And it's funny you should mention about COVID. I mean, I haven't had a COVID test, but I've had both my injections, and when I went for the first injection, you know, there was a big like, oh, you know, people get sick and people are scared. And I went for mine, and Israel's top of the world in per capita vaccinations. We actually, they lifted the mandate of masks now in the country. We don't have to wear masks anymore and outside, which is amazing. I'm very, very happy about that. Because pretty much everyone in the country has been vaccinated now. And when I went for my first vaccination, I mean, I don't like injections, but I'll just get on with it, you know. And where they had it all set up, we had to go to the, where I live in Jerusalem, they had it all set up in the National Basketball Arena. So we had to, everybody was like, you know, you have your time, your ticket, you go. And they had all these cubicles set up with nurses in to do the injection. And so I went into my cubicle, and I actually knew the nurse. She was from Manchester. It was so funny. She'd come out every time, and I'd met her at a friend's house a couple of months earlier, and she's like, "We got our masks on. Is that you?" Like, yeah. So I knew my nurse. So we started chatting, and so I forgot I was there for an injection. You know, she just, you know, I didn't even feel it. So we're saying goodbye, and she stood up to like help me see, because you have to go and wait for about 20 minutes after the injection just to make sure everything's okay. And as she was showing me where the waiting area was, I'm guessing about 17-year-old kid came out of the cubicle next to me who had had his injection exactly the same time as me. And as he stood up, bang, he fell on the floor. He hit his head really hard. He passed out, poor guy. I can only imagine the anxiety, the stress that he was like, you know, his legs just gave way, you know, like, well, that's another physical reaction to thinking. And that he terrified himself so much that he passed out. You know, it couldn't have been a reaction to the injection because it had only been like a second beforehand. It was a reaction to his thinking about the injection, you know. And so I loved your story, because I've worked with a lot of people who they might have an event coming up in the future, and will scare themselves crazy, you know, leading up to it, but the event itself might even be a phone call, which will be over in 2 minutes. But we kind of concoct this story in our heads that just makes things worse and worse and worse. And what I learned, really coming from my training as a trauma counselor, is that a lot about the fight or flight response, which is that if we're in a crisis, we're in danger, the body gets all these messages from the brain, and you get cortisol and adrenaline and epinephrine and glucose get pumped into the body for energy to run, to lift things, to survive. But if we're sitting in stress for more than 20 minutes, which is usually the maximum it is for under normal situation, but you're sitting in stress for 4 hours, 5 hours, 8, 16 hours a day after day, then that is going to have a big toll on the body in terms of adrenal, fatigue and your thyroid. And, that's why a lot of people have stomach problems when you're in prolonged stress, because the brain actually shuts down digestion when you're in a crisis. Because if you're running for your life, you don't need to be digesting lunch, right? That's a luxury. And so that's why people have terrible gut problems and pain in the stomach when they're in stress for a long time. And so it's fascinating when you start seeing how this works. There's a lot of logic to it, a lot of intelligence, that when you see that, and you see how we innocently misunderstand it and innocently torture ourselves with this stuff. And I've worked with people who have literally scared themselves sick. They've literally made themselves sick from terrorizing themselves with their own thinking innocently. Like Bill Pettit always says, it's an innocent misunderstanding. And so that's why I always want to try and point people in the direction of a good feeling and with kindness and as much like wisdom to help them see that they have the ability to. They have their own resilience. They have that intelligence in the body, in the innate wisdom that will help them, when they see through the illusion of it. Oh gosh, I was doing this to myself. There's a lot of freedom available there. It's amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think will be a great time to open it up for questions. One of the things that I've seen before we do that, and probably have seen as well, is that when you, I've seen with Wayne, I've seen with myself, and with a lot of my clients, say when you are not the person that has this or that condition, or that, it's so freeing, because suddenly you see yourself doing things that you don't have to tell yourself that is not for you. Like with Wayne, we haven't adapted his place at all. So there's no ramps, there's no higher. So we just, when we got together, I said to him, like, would you be willing to, what, I prefer for both of us to throw ourselves on the floor from the sofa and then get up, and then to, because then you will have to do more exercise, and that will help. And and so now we go on holiday, and to get into the pool, we do together, we lie on the side of the pool, and we both roll, and we both do the same thing, as it's like, this is how we get into the pool. It's not like, so, and now I see Wayne surprises me all the time. Like he goes like, and I was thinking, I would like to be an electrician. And in my head, I go like, well, okay, what about ladders? And what about places? How are you going to access that? And I can see that he's now thinking, I can do this and I can do that. And there's no limits. I have probably more limits about what he could or not do than now what he has. This is how liberating it is. He's like teaching me, no, wait a minute, just it's so let's open up to see. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves or put your either your hand or the little hand you have down here with participants, there's a virtual hand. Please do that, and either ask a question or share something you may want to share with us. You have a really beautiful group. You can write your question if you want to.
Sarah's got a hand up.
Yes, Sarah, go for it.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hey. I didn't know any of you, so this is really nice. I sort of it just popped up on Facebook. I must be part of a group like just 20 minutes before I put the kids down. I was like, oh, because is it Chana? How do you pronounce it?
Hannah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
It's the pronunciation, isn't it? You came on. I'm in a course with Rohini, and you came on there and spoke in a rewilding community, and it really, really touched me. And my children's father has quite intense arthritis. He's quite young. He's like 34, I think. And so this is a really practical question, but like, would your book, is it something which would be perfect for a person who sort of knows nothing, in the sense of it would start them off in an inquiry, or would you advise maybe to point them towards 3 Ps and then your book, or what's yeah?
I think I'd say it's a really good introduction, because especially for someone who's suffering like that, because the whole story of the book is that she introduces these ideas to people who know nothing about the principles. So that's
perfect.
kind of like the journey of the book, is that it's a novel, so it's made up, but I wanted to kind of create a scenario where my main character is going to introduce the principles to the pain to the pain world. And so I kind of manufactured this situation where she's seeing somebody, a director of a clinic, and so he says, well, why don't you come and teach it here? So I kind of chose 15 characters to be in this clinic who had various different physical things, and they're all based on clients I've worked with or people I've known. Excuse me. And so they're gathered together for a week of seminars, and she introduces the idea of understanding the mind is a way of understanding how pain works and how you can be free of that. So I'd say it's probably I feel weird like saying my book's the right one, but modesty permits that. I would say that was the purpose of the book, is to introduce these ideas, because I wrote it for probably more for the pain community than I did for the principles community, in that to offer that there is another way to go, that because in the pain management world, it's like there's incredible science that's being done, incredible research, but they always go back to what we would call an outside-in solution. They always go back to either meditating, expressive writing, yoga, Pilates, which are all great things. I would never want to twist someone's arm and tell them to stop doing those things, especially if it's giving them relief, because we don't want people to suffer. But I always say to people, get curious about why it's working. Let's go upstream a little bit and discover why your expressive writing or your meditation or your yoga is working, why maybe it stopped working, why it only works some of the time, why you need to keep doing it. Because when you understand how thought is moving through your mind all the time, how it actually works, then maybe people start seeing that all those techniques and methods that people understandably put so much faith in are actually just various ways to slow thinking down. But what I've noticed is, because of the misunderstanding, they then think they feel better because of the technique, because of that room that smells of essential oils, and the acupuncturist who's so helpful, and the technique, and I got all my feelings out in my writing, that they're innocently seeing that is what's giving them the relief, when we know that actually that's already in them, the wellness, the calmness, the happiness is already actually in them. It's just that technique helped them to slow down for a little bit. So when you understand how it works, you don't have to keep doing those things. Like I have not been to the chiropractor in 6 years now. And nothing against her, she was a great chiropractor, but I just don't need to go anymore, So I haven't done any of those techniques and methods since, and I'm doing fine.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely get him a copy. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. And Jen says, it's a great read, simple and interesting read, but you have lots of insights as you read. I get more and more out of it as I read it again. So, it seems that at least one person is saying it's really good. So it's a really, and I think you're right. Like when people are in pain, when we are in pain, it's very difficult to listen to anything. We're really exhausted, so it's difficult to say to somebody, oh, here is a book that has nothing to do with whatever, just I think this, if you're in pain, that should get your attention. So let's see, anybody else around there that wants to ask a question or share something?
Hi, Hannah.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi. I loved hearing your story. It was great. I just wondered. I mean, I work as a nurse practitioner in general practice, and so I kind of see it from the other side as well, and how people are treated with like chronic pain and other issues. And I just wondered, from your point of view, because I know, like, we've got things like chronic pain clinics that sort of use psychological, they have psychological support elements in them as well. I just wondered how that, how different is it? I can kind of guess, compared to sort of coming from it from a three principles point of view. I mean, I don't know what sort of psychological support they give in the chronic pain clinics, really. I refer people all the time. I don't really know, and I wondered whether, what your experience of that was.
I mean, to be honest, the only time I've ever been in a chronic pain clinic was to hand a doctor a copy of my book. She'd asked one. So I've never personally been a patient in one. Maybe somebody else listening might have been, but I know that the kind of I know more the alternative kind of pain management world, like I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Sarno and TMS, and
I read his book, the back pain. So, that's excellent book. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, that started me off on my journey of understanding, what was on offer out there, and I really appreciate his medical, expertise, and there's so much good information out there. But I find that most of the techniques and methods that either he or people who've kind of taken on his legacy, and for those of you who don't know, this doctor I'm talking about was kind of a pioneer in the mind-body medicine world. And he really wasn't accepted by his peers at the time. The other doctors were, especially because he was taking people away from needing surgery. So he was not popular with surgeons and, an osteopath who would like make a lot of money out of all these surgeries he was saying that weren't needed. But he was a good doctor and he really cared for his patients. And so the people who kind of took on his legacy of what he was teaching and working with have kind of adopted a kind of a Freudian kind of psychological idea that there's something that the pain they've seen that the pain is not caused by a structural thing. Once a structural thing is ruled out, like a God forbid a tumor, infection, that kind of stuff. Once that's been ruled out, then there's research to show that the pain is actually being produced by the limbic system, where the amygdala is, the fight or flight response. And so Sarno got very curious to see why was that? Why would people be in fight or flight for so long? And so he started making the connection between stress and chronic pain. And so from a traditional therapy psychological approach, the solution is always, it must be in the subconscious. It's repressed rage, suppressed feelings. And so then they have all their techniques and methods for dealing with that, which is usually something between talk therapy, journaling, expressive writing, meditation. Which, like I said, if people are getting relief from that's great. But from an understanding of the three principles, we just know that's just like a Band-Aid. It's just like temporary, because that's why people have to keep going back to the therapist and keep going back to the practitioner and keep going back to the pain clinic, because they might have gotten some relief. And I actually, in the book, I come up with an analogy. I call it a gas station. Like when you go to something like a pain clinic or an acupuncturist or you're doing writing, and when you go to a petrol station, you fill up on calm. You fill up on petrol, but like going to a pain clinic, you're like filling up and you feel calmer. Oh, I feel so much better now. But as you go back into life and you're dealing with kids and mortgages and careers and bosses and neighbors, you start running out of calm. It starts to like the petrol gauge, the gas gauge in your car starts to run out. And so when you run out of petrol, you have to go back to the petrol station, right? So if you run out of calm, I better go back to where I found the calm. Back to the acupuncturist, back to my writing, back to my Pilates class. And that was an innocent misunderstanding I had for a long time. I found calm at the chiropractor. I felt better when she went crunch and click and got, I was like, it was weird, but it was like, oh, now I know I'm going to get better. But what I know now is I'd have probably started getting better anyway, because the body has this intelligence to heal itself. So that's kind of why I set the book in a pain clinic, because I wanted to offer a deeper idea, a deeper understanding, that if we go a little bit further upstream of understanding how experience actually is constructed, how it works, and how we actually experience everything, including pain, including frustration and exhaustion and all those things, then you start seeing the kind of like what Wayne was describing, is that even you can actually still be in pain and have a better experience of it even. And as you have a better experience of it, where we're not reacting so much anymore, then the body gets the chance to kind of settle, and it's not getting those danger messages anymore. Because I've had lots of clients who say to me things like, I went to the doctor and the doctor said, you're going to have to live with this pain for the rest of your life, or there's nothing we can do, or, you are damaged, you are broken, things like that. Those kind of messages. Frightening things, some of the things I've heard. And what's that going to do to your nervous system? Then we tense up and then the muscles will get tight again, and it just, it's a vicious cycle. Whereas when I'm, talking to people and talking to a well person who's just gotten caught up in a lot of thinking, then there's a chance for healing there. So I would say I'd imagine that's what's different about it, is I'm coming from a place where, like, to quote my teacher Bill Patet, is that, we're not broken, we don't need fixing, and you're not lacking anything. Whereas the traditional approach is, there's something wrong with you, and here's like 6 different techniques we can try out to fix that.
Yeah, this is your treatment, and and it almost reinforces with people, oh, look, I need this medicine now. I need,
Yeah.
This is with me now. This is something I've got to cope with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Great question. Pallavi says, yes, it's a really great book, very inspiring, and so much helpful information in there.
Thank you.
I remember you were saying about the pain clinic, Claire, and I had an injury when I used to dance as a professional, and at that point they told me that I wasn't probably gonna walk unaided and probably never go back to dancing. And
Wow.
yeah, so, and I didn't want to accept that. I didn't know about the principles at that time, but something in me just didn't want to believe that. And I kept going and asking and trying to find somebody to find something to help me out. And eventually I managed to find somebody that was treating the dancers in the National Theatre in Argentina and the footballers. So like the same people that were treating Maradona and probably Messi now or whatever. Just that. But the amazing thing is that this lady that worked with me went like, you know what, just my uncle who manages the clinics is like, come and he'll do it for free, because it wasn't possible for me to pay that. So he treated me for free. And the most incredible thing was that this guy looked at me and he saw me, and he said this, he said, like, never believe anybody that says you will never do anything again or that again. That was brilliant. And it took me ages, but I finally managed to start walking again unaided. And then at some point, without me realizing, I sort of started venturing into do another step and whatever. And now, again, I teach dancing. So that's something I do every day. And I started getting pain in my knees. And this was probably 7 years ago or 8 years ago, a bit more, 9 years ago. So I go here to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, look, there's very little cartilage in your knees. It's tear and wear, because I was 42 or whatever, 52 now. So I'm going to refer you to the pain clinic. And what you need to do is to stop doing all physical activity, because it's going to make it worse. And again, something in me went, no, I'd rather live with the pain in my knees and not have the risk of diabetes or heart conditions, or because I'm going to put on weight. And so I refused. I didn't go. And I was doing a course. And I thought, well, if I can't do dancing, maybe I'll do gym instructors. I went that way completely by chance. And the guy that's teaching the course says, well, okay, we're going to demonstrate doing squats. And so it's like, just like, bending your knees. And he says, well, Carolina's going to demonstrate. And I'm like looking at him going like, I'm the one that has the knee problems. So it's like, I'm looking at, but I felt embarrassed to say anything. So he goes, okay, you keep squatting while I explain all the right way of doing it and all the technique. And I'm now getting desperate, just looking at him like, I'm going to have to say something because this guy's going to kill me. I'm not going to be able to walk now for many days. And when I was going to say something, he says, that's enough, thank you, stop. So I didn't say anything. Now, the next day I had no pain on my knees. No pain. For the first time in years.
Wow.
And a week later, I was so much better. It's like hardly any pain. And I went back and I said this to him. And I said, well, then it's probably just cruciate ligament. It has nothing to do with cartilage in your knees. I kept squatting. So I make a cup of tea, and when the kettle is boiling or whatever, I'm squatting in the kitchen. You know, now I forget to squat. I just don't do it anymore. So I healed completely. I have no more pain. So I refuse to believe the limitation of, I refuse to give up. Something in me just went, no. And this is where we sort of come to understand the principles and understand how it works, and we also then know that they are with us. This is with us all the time. But when we come to read, you know, Hannah's book or any of Sid's materials or hear about what he uncovered, it makes sense. And when it makes sense, it opens up a world of possibilities. So I'm a terrible practitioner because my clients last very little with me. They get better and they don't come back. And I think the best thing we do is when people stop saying things like my disability, my chronic fatigue, like that is a definition of who they are. It frees people, gives them hope. I don't know if we have any more questions or something to share. I'm very conscious because it's very late for Hannah in Israel.
It's also it's got hotter. It's like it's 88 degrees now, which is like
wow.
What that is.
Wow.
And it's like it's cool. It's 10 to 11 at night, and it's 88 degrees. Like,
You look like you're wearing a jumper, though, Hannah.
no, it's a t-shirt.
Oh.
Oh,
Any plans of making your book into an audio version? For Audible?
I mean, there are no plans. No, I'm already writing 3, 4, and 5. That's what I'm writing.
Wow.
In the middle, I've got 4 more stories on the go. I'm also I just kind of been working on doing an online course as well. So just started working on that. Been thinking about it for a year, so I just got around to doing it. But because like I'm not a scientist. I'm not. It's this all this stuff is like very. I still find it weird that people want to ask me about stuff, But kind of like what someone was saying earlier about, like, Sid was an ordinary guy and he had this amazing experience. I'm just an ordinary person who just, my pain went away, and it could happen for anybody.
The problem is the medical model isn't working, is it? I mean, we've got such a high increase in chronic fatigue, chronic pain syndromes, people on long-term opiates now more than ever before. That model isn't working, a bit like sort of what's happening in the mental health world as well, isn't working. Like Bill always says.
Yeah, my family doctor, before Corona even happened, I was in her office, and she was filling out, it wasn't my regular doctor. My regular doctor was away, and I was seeing this lady doctor, and she was filling out my information in her computer, and she went, "Are you Chana Studley?" And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Someone gave me your book last night," meaning that my other book, my first one. I'm like, "Really?" And so she's part of a book club, and someone suggested they read it, which is amazing. Anyway, so I took a chance and started telling her about the work that I'm doing now, because my regular doctor, he even thinks chiropractors and acupuncturists is weird. He's very, very brilliant doctor, but very, very, straight down the line. And so if she had been given my first book, I thought maybe she might be open to hearing something. So I took a chance, and I told her about what I'm doing now, and she stopped, and she pointed at her door of her surgery, and she says, "Everybody who comes through my door right now is either maternity or some kind of mind-body pain connection." And she said it's the epidemic of the age. Now, she used that word before we had a pandemic, but I still think it's like a silent epidemic of, stress was pretty bad before we had this last year of terrible things happening. So I can only imagine the level of stress and how that manifests physically for a lot of people must have gone through the roof. So I actually got approached by a doctor from the pain unit of Hadassah Hospital here, which is a big teaching hospital, part of the university, and she wanted to know if I would come and give a talk to the pain clinic there. I was like, oh, when I read that message on LinkedIn, I was like, oh, it's happening.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
And, so I wrote back. I said, I'd be honored. Like, I'd drop everything. I'll come and, come tomorrow. And she said, yeah, let me just check with my boss. And I thought, so her boss wanted to know what I was licensed in. And because I don't have a license, a medical license, the boss wouldn't let me come and speak. So that's why I went into the hospital and just thought at least I could give her a copy of the book. So we're kind of like in the middle of getting her to read the book now. But like she said to me, thank you for the book, but I don't have time to read all the medical journals she needs to read, let alone a novel, So, I don't see it as it's not over. The story's not over. Well, I'll get her to, maybe I thought I'll just like highlight some bits for her to read, or, I'll keep going. And I've had, I actually have a couple of people here who send me clients locally, like a physiotherapist and an osteopath. They both send me clients, and I think they're the people that they don't know what to do with, because when there's no medical reason for the pain and they're not responding to any treatment, send them to Chana, because it must be something in the head, and so they're sending me people, which is amazing. To see that those people get well after all, the doctors and everyone's kind of given up. Because if the only choice is there addictive medications or unnecessary surgeries, to be able to offer people some relief, some insight into, what's actually going on and how it's being experienced for the doctors too, as well as the patients.
Absolutely, I think it'd be fantastic. Getting the 3 Ps into these clinics would be amazing.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for that email or that phone call saying, can you come and give a talk? And I'm like, I'll be right there. I'd pay for my flight. I would just be there just to get into one place and be able to do that, and just, kind of like I described in the book, and then just, record that and then reproduce it elsewhere. That's a dream. And it's funny, for a long time, especially when I was like doing the One Thought course, I remember saying to Aaron Turner at the beginning, I said to him, I don't have a PhD, nobody's going to listen to me. And this is long before I even thought about the pain thing. I just thought in terms of being a practitioner. I didn't even finish college, right? I got nothing. In terms of, during Corona, I did get a $29 diploma in psychology off the internet because I was bored and I wanted something to do, but some kind of Mickey Mouse certificate. Anyway, but so like, I kept saying to Aaron, like, what am I doing? Like, no one's going to hire me, like, as a coach even, like, you know. And he goes, yeah, a lot of people have that concern, which is such a brilliant answer. He didn't tell me, you know, what to do. He didn't tell me to work on it. He didn't. Like, he just said, yeah, that happens. And I remember the day we had our graduation, and we all had to like get up and say a little bit about, you know, what insights we had and experience, you know, we were having on the course. I remember sitting there going, where's that fear I had that nobody's going to hire me, that I don't have a PhD? It evaporated. Like I was saying earlier to Wayne, it's like it just disappeared. And then I started doing this work, and people are hiring me. And then I was talking to Dick and Bettinger, and I remember talking to him about like what I would like to be doing with this kind of work. And I suddenly got this feeling that I could sit on a panel with a doctor and a therapist and PhD people, you know, because we've got
part of
gold.
an MDT. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've got gold. Like, understanding how the mind works in this way, like, it's so, you know, precious and truth. And I don't have to be frightened that I don't have a PhD anymore, because what I'm saying is coming from experience. It's coming from truth. The wisdom just comes through. Like, sometimes I'm a babbling idiot, and sometimes it just like comes out, and like I'm like, where did that come from, you know? And so when I've spoken to people, you know, like who are curious and interested, you know, it's they see the truth of it too. Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting.
Fantastic. Good luck.
So if anybody has any connections with pain clinics or wants to, please, because we never know who's going to watch the video on YouTube or, you know, so we never know who's going to. Also, you know, probably Meryl Streep is quite bored at the moment. She may want to read your book on Audible, you know, or, you know, any actor that is at the moment waiting to go back on stage or recording or, you know, doing a movie. Feel free to contact Hannah, please. And if you don't get anybody else, I'll be happy to do it. So if people want to get in contact with you, so where can they find you?
I have a website. It's my name, hannahstudley.com. And I'm on Facebook. You can find me there. And I have a Facebook group which has coming up to 2,000 people in it, which is amazing. I have a Facebook group with lots of. That has been such an incredible privilege to be sharing the principles with people who are just looking for pain relief, you know, and being able to, you know, bring this understanding to them is amazing. I have several groups. I had a couple of book studies on my book. You know, those are just coming to an end. So I'm just starting a new twice monthly group where we're going to start. We're going to continue and start looking at Sid Banks's books from a mind-body connection kind of idea. So those things are all ongoing. And so I'm kind of recording a course now where I'm going to put all the science stuff that I've learned, you know, into an actual course that people can buy, like as a package, you know, along with coaching. So yeah, I'm available for coaching, and it's so I would suggest the website. It's probably the best way, because then you can just email me from there. Yeah,
brilliant. We'll point you to all these places. Wayne will put all the website information and how to find you. And obviously, Painless is very easy to get. You can get it on Amazon. Amazon is not sponsoring us, but you can get the books. Fantastic. So Hannah, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's an absolute dream. Please come back. Let us know about anything else that you're doing.
Yeah. No, it's been my pleasure. So when I get around to writing the other books, we can talk about those ones too.
Yes, or as soon as any pain clinic contacts you,
Yeah,
let us
I'll
know.
let you know.
And Hannah's going to be this. So next week, next Wednesday, we're not having an episode because the conference, the annual conference that usually takes place in London, is virtual, and it's 3 full days of amazing teachers like Hannah speaking for the whole day. So it's going to be Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. If you don't have a ticket, you can just go for the day, or you can go for the 3 days, or there's a day especially for youth, so for younger people, and that is £50, or the equivalent of the money wherever you are. If you work for the health system, if you work for the NHS, your ticket is free. So please let people know that they can come in for free. So this is 3P UK, and also any details are in the How to Connect with Humans group, or you can ask us. You can get a 10% discount. We'll give you a code for that. And any questions you may have, please. So I think 3 days of being with amazing teachers like Hannah, it's enough for next week. And on the 5th of April, we're going to have Joe Bailey, which is going to follow on what Hannah's been talking. And Joe Bailey has been it's been head of the Mayo Clinic, and he's worked with a lot of people with addictions, mental health problems, and he's seen tons and tons of cases where he at some point decided to work fully around the principles, and he's seen incredible things happen. So it's an absolute honor to have you on this series. And we're saying, like, this series is the series that marks the 1 full year of us doing episodes every week. So thank you so much for being here, Wayne, my love. I know it's difficult to do it without being next to each other.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
would be lovely to see you all at the conference, and of course see you on our next episode on the 5th of April. Oh, somebody's just come in. Oh, bless. Chris, you just come in. We were saying goodbyes. You probably got the wrong time, so sorry for that, but you'll have the recording. The first recording, the uncut recording, is going to be on the How to Connect with Humans group. So that is going to be there in about 40 minutes or so. And then the YouTube video that is available for everybody is going to be in a few days there.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Bye,
Thank
Hannah.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Wayne and Carolina.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.